This red bench was in the Octagon. We're changing the name to the Red Bench series. And I think this is the most number of people we've ever had sitting on the red bench at once. So if it gets too hot, feel free to stand up. I am going to ask each of these guys and women to stand up and introduce themselves. I did sort of a call out and say, hey, it would be really great to sort of document and start talking about the growth of downhill mountain biking and resort-based mountain biking here in Vermont. And we've seen a huge explosion in this over the last really 10 years, 20 years, but even more so, I'd say, in the last 2 or 3 years. And each of these people plays a big role in this. We are also Facebook Living this, and we will be archiving this on our YouTube page for the Vermont Ski and Snowboard Museum. So we like to think of the Ski Museum as a place that's really about the living history of not just skiing and riding, but everything that's going on at our ski resorts and increasingly in sort of our outdoor activities. So I'd like to start out by, I'm going to have everybody sort of stand up and introduce themselves so that you can identify who's who. And when we speak, if you could stand up, that would be great. So Jessica, you want to start?
I'm Jessica, and I'm from Burke Mountain. I'm the Sales and Marketing Director there.
John Hammond, Sugarbush Resort, VP of Mountain Ops and Rec Services.
Hello, my name is Zach. I'm with the Rochester Randolph Area Sports Trails Alliance, and skiing and biking is our thing.
I'm Brooke, trail designer and builder with Sinuosity.
Nick Mahood, Woodstock Inner Resort in Suicide Six Ski Area. Run the cross-country ski program and downhill mountain biking.
My name is Ben Colonna. I'm the Killington Mountain Bike Park Manager and also the KNBC Mountain Bike President with VIMBA.
I'm Tom Stussy. I'm the Executive Director of the Vermont Mountain Bike Association.
Sam Von Trapp from the Trapp Family Lodge.
Lily Aside, Kingdom Trail Association. I do the marketing, events, and retail stuff.
I'm Adam Delorier from Bolton Valley Resort. I'm the snow sports and summer program director.
You made that up.
Tyler, if you're out there, come on up. There.
I'm Tyler Jefferson. I'm the bike program manager at Smuggler's Notch Resort.
So I should start out by saying too that we are missing some resorts here. This is by no means reflective of all the ski resorts in the state that are doing mountain biking. Mount Snow was probably the first to jump into the game in a big way. Recently, Okemo has added downhill mountain biking. We have Stratton, which is bringing in downhill mountain biking as well. And it seems to be a growing trend. So I'll start out with the first question is, can mountain biking become as big as skiing for resorts? And I'm going to direct this to you, Ben, because I understand you had 5,500 people come to Killington for the Fox US Open last weekend. So tell us about that.
Sure. Let me stand up. Yes, we did have the Fox US Open at Killington this past weekend. It was a great success. We had 5,500 people over 4 days come to the resort to practice, to race, to just have fun, to see. We had concerts going on. We had a bonfire Saturday night. We had a whip-off competition that actually got delayed on Saturday because of weather, and it went to Sunday, and we still had at least a couple hundred people up on the hill watching. Usually Sundays people go home, as we know in the winter, and they really did stick around and check it out. We had a Grand Bomb on Sunday. A little interesting fact about the Grand Bomb, it had 75 kids under 14 participate. There were 65 men US Open participants, so we had more kids participants in the open aspect, which just shows you where the sport's going. It's really about the kids, the families, and that's where Killington really is trying to build trail with partnership with Gravity Logic towards that market. So yeah, we had a bunch of people at Killington. They all had a great time. It's funny, the weather did play a challenge. We had some poor forecasts. The forecast people never help ski resorts, ever. We need to start bribing them, I think. Because we actually had good weather for most of the time. A couple of thunderstorms came through. But if you watched, 5 days prior, so it's a complete washout. So, with that said, the mountain biker population are very cool people. They're laid back, they go with the flow, they don't really care about the weather too much, they don't mind getting muddy. Can't say the same for the skier demographic. They see a patch of ice, it's the worst day they've ever had. So I mean, we really do love the mountain bikers. Killington's been a great, leader in that. Well, we think we're leaders in that, in terms of driving population towards, us, but also getting people into the sport. That's really our main focus.
Thanks, and we might add too, you have what, 35 miles of trails now?
Give or take, yep.
That's pretty impressive. So Nick, you're sitting right next to Ben here, and you just opened your very first bike park at Suicide 6, Elemental. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. So we opened on July 21st. So we've been open about 3 weeks or so now. We partnered with Sinuosity, Brooke Scatcherd and his team here, for a multi-year build-out at Suicide to give us, I guess I would say, summer opportunities for the resort. The resort recognized that we needed to become a year-round destination. I think much like Killington has over the years, and so we're headed really quickly in that direction. We got about 3-ish miles of trails going right now, which has been really well received. We have had a little bit of a struggle with the weather over the past couple weeks since we opened, but that's all right. I think it's been good actually to be a little slow and get our feet underneath us after a big rush to get open. But it's been awesome. We're looking forward to the rest of the build from these guys, and we're excited.
That's terrific. And what kind of bikes do you? You've got some pretty cool new fleet of bikes too, right?
Yeah, we have a nice rental fleet. You want me to stand up and let's go back and forth. We have a nice rental fleet from Kona and Santa Cruz.
We also have some other developing mountain bike scenes here. Adam, you can tell us a little bit about, I think, the trail revival going on at Bolton.
Yes, we have a trail revival going at Bolton. There's luckily a pretty good existing network of trails there that have been there for decades now. I'm embarrassed to say, I think it has been decades. But little or not well known at all. But the reception has been awesome. As we've gotten back into expanding our summer activity programming and trying to really drive some numbers and some traffic up there in the summer. We didn't have a whole lot of capital to work with, so we were like, how can we utilize what we have most effectively to really get some energy going here? And there was a core of just diehard downhill guys that were really adamant about keeping those trails rideable and in great shape, really, considering that they weren't working with any money or any real fiscal backing at all for years, for decades. I mean, literally 20 years. So we used what money we could kind of scrape together to get an uphill going, and we just have been trying to work with the existing bike groups around the area to grow what we could as organically as possible. And we're sort of treading forward carefully to make sure that we have something that becomes financially viable, but also locally available. And so we're sort of towing that line of making it a business venture, but also keeping that availability open to people that are used to being able to ride great trails without having to pay for a lift ticket or a trail fee. And it's tricky, so as we go into it, we're kind of at an interesting point now, because we want to put some capital investment into it and guarantee a return for those who have invested, but at the same time we want to make it exciting and fun and available to everybody. So we're still figuring that out, and the growth is relatively slow, but luckily there was a great infrastructure and a great support group of people that were into it, and so that's where we are now. Things are great. We have, we did, hire a small crew and a machine to go and do some stuff for about a month and build a nice uphill and downhill and kind of restore some of the flowy jump features and whatnot. And that's where we are now. It's going great. So yeah, off we go.
It's great to move out country.
Exactly.
And Tyler, you're also making some improvements over at Smuggler's Notch. Can you just share what those?
So we've been doing the bike program officially at Smugs now for, I believe this is the 5th year that we're doing some programming up there. We're going at it a little differently than some of the other resorts. We're not doing lift serve downhill anytime in the near future. We're kind of aiming more towards cross-country type stuff. Starting out more as kind of an amenity for guests that are there, but really trying to reach out to the locals as well and bring some folks in. We've got about 8 or 9 miles of decent cross-country trails, single track and double track at this point. A lot more in the planning stage, working on getting some permitting going, trying to get a nice flow trail going down from mid-station on our lower mountain with maybe some shuttle service up for that, since we won't be having the lifts running anytime real soon. We do have, what's been really popular is we've got our skills park, both Little Flatland Skills Park with a pump track and some bridges and rollers and features for people to learn on. It's great when we're doing all of our basic skills clinics and introducing a lot of our guests to mountain biking for the first time. We've also got our little mini downhill skills park that we have our access of our magic carpet lift on our, what's our bunny hill in the summertime, or in the wintertime. In the summer we build a little downhill pump track basically on that. That's been super popular with the guests as well as with a lot of the locals. Like I said, we've been trying to work with some of the local bike groups with the Stowe Trails Partnership here in Stowe and with Bruce River Mountain Bike Club, as well as some other clubs. And just trying to build up, get some more people involved locally, get the word out that we have mountain biking at Smugs. Went to both NEMBAfest and VIMBAfest this year to try to spread the word and got great response from folks, and just trying to build it up, trying to start bringing some more people to the area, not only for what we have at Smugs, but to enjoy all of the great trail networks within the area, hoping to kind of looking at the financial ends of things, hoping to start bringing some people in to use Smugs as kind of a hub to then visit and be able to go to a bunch of other areas, a bunch of other available trail networks and ride, as well as riding what we have there. And working at it slow, but making some progress and moving in the right direction.
That's great. Well, more the better. Shifting gears a second, it's great that we have you, John, and you, Jessica, sitting right next to each other, because outside of Killington and Mount Snow, certainly, Burke and Sugarbush have really been at the forefront of hosting some really significant races. You guys both have really extensive mountain bike facilities, but I'd also kind of like to hear about what's the race scene like, and is it, do you see that getting as big as downhill racing is in skiing? Or alpine racing is in skiing? And by all means, Ben, please weigh in here. You can also use this opportunity to tell us about what's new.
Yeah, well, Burke has been a bike park for almost a decade now, and we started thanks to Kingdom Trails. And now we have our own dedicated trail crew, and we also run the lifts. We have 17 trails that are lift access, and also 3 trails off the summit that are shuttle access. So as far as the racing goes, we're really known for our enduro staging. This year in particular, we have the North American Continental World Enduro Series. Yeah, so that's a pretty big deal. Last year we held a qualifying race, which earned us the right to have such a prestigious race in line with North Star and Aspen, 2 Western bike parks that are very well known. We started in the enduro racing, way back when, as part of the Triple Crown series with Mountain Creek, Highland, and us. that was kind of like a progression series, I guess you could say, also point related. And then we started getting to know the Eastern State Cups fellows and just started the enduro staging there. So yeah, I mean, with us, the Academy, Burke Mountain Academy, we're also known for our ski racing, so that is kind of a natural fit for our mountain to be known for its challenging aspect and pitch. So, yes.
So Sugarbush got back into downhill biking again in, I think it was 2007. We stopped in 99. Back in the ASC days, it was a bunch of the resorts in New England, including Bolton, that's where I started downhill biking. Got together and we were sort of all going down just the bike trails, and we sort of realized that was terrible. And we sort of said, what can we do that's different? And at Sugarbush, we sort of took a break from it. We just stopped. And then I was up having fun at Bolton and in Attitash and some other areas, and we said, we got to bring this back. So we sort of came back at it a little bit differently than sort of coming to the beginner trail. We, much like most ski area things, built stuff that we liked. And, you know, that worked great for a short term, and it worked great for us that were riding it, but it really doesn't work well for the beginners and the families. And so since 2007 till now, really we're trying to expand on what we can do to sort of bring more people in, be more inclusive. While we're struggling to do that part of it, we've also just been a really great race mountain because we do have very hard, technical, difficult trails. They're fast, there's a good mix. And because of that, that's sort of our bread and butter right now. That's where people, I mean, I think for the last 3 years, we've had the highest Eastern State Cups attendance at their races at our mountain because people love the challenge, and it's the same course that we've been running year after year after year from the Pro GRT all the way up till now, and because it has that good mix. And so we're also finding like with our sponsored riders, they're also really doing well because they can really get that good hard 1,700 vertical feet of ripping the bars the entire way. And then they go to a different mountain, it's like, oh, it's not that bad. And so but we have been trying to expand our train, and we expanded our trail crew this year to 3 full-time staff that are just out there really working on the trails, and we've been getting really positive feedback of trying to sort of round some of the sharper edges off of our trails. So that's sort of where we are right now.
That's great, thanks. And I think, you know, that's a really great segue into the question of how we continue to grow the sport. And I think one of the most amazing testimonials we have to the potential for mountain biking is what we've seen at Kingdom Trails, which is, you know, probably a little bit more cross-country than downhill. I'd say a lot more cross-country than downhill. And also the potential that we're seeing at places like the Track Family Lodge, which is a cross-country center, but where there's definitely a lot of new trail development as well. So Lilias, why don't you sort of start and tell us how big is Kingdom Trails become?
Well, if you look at your handout here, you will see that last year we saw about 115,000 visits, according to like how many people bought memberships, because we keep track of each and every, you know, day pass purchase through our waiver system, and we're very high tech, very professional, so we can keep track of everybody that comes and where they're coming from and what hour of the day. So we have, over the last, since I've been there for 10 years, experienced about 15 to 20% growth each year, and we're probably on par for about the same growth. And we are obviously a lot more cross-country, the main part of our network, which is our bread and butter, and which is, you know, like someplace that you can come, the kids, mom can come, dad can come with the mom and keep up, you know. So everybody has a great time together, but I think what's really great about what's happening right now and in the future is the variety in our area. You know, you're not going to stay satisfied with those smooth buff trails, but we've got the mountain, and that's why this partnership works so well together, because you have steep technical downhill, you know, excavated lift access trails, natural trails, and our cross-country Victory on the backside, a new area over in East Haven. So it's really, the future is a diversity, but the kids and the families are the future. But if you want to look at these numbers, this is exactly how quickly and how much it's grown.
And so Sam Von Trapp and Brooke Scatcherd, I happen to know that both of you guys are out there building a lot of trails. Brooke, you do it professionally. Sam, I think you do it, started out recreationally, but I think it became professional. So maybe you can tell us, how did Trapp Family Lodge get into mountain biking? And then perhaps you can both talk a little bit about what does it take to build a good trail? You know, what's the difference? Why do you need to go pay for a lift ticket or pay for a trail pass to ride a trail versus just going out and riding in your backyard somewhere?
So I'll let Brooke talk about the technical aspect of building trails, since he's a trail designer and builder. I used to build trail. I now spend more time on the road selling beer or reading nasty TripAdvisor comments. So the challenges of the hospitality business. We at Trapp Family Lodge got into mountain biking really because of where we're located. We've got a great piece of land there. My father, for good reason, had not allowed mountain biking on the cross-country trails for many years because of erosion, and he really recognized that it needs to be done sustainably, and the timing was just great. Rick Sokoloff and Hardy Avery came and presented to us about 11 years ago, roughly, and gave us a pitch on sustainable trail building techniques, and that's what changed my dad's whole idea. And I got to spend a summer out there working for Hardy, building trails at our place. It's interesting how an idea can develop, because our first plan was really just to build trails to draw people to the Trapp Family Lodge. We wanted people to come and stay at Trapp Family Lodge to mountain bike. But then we didn't want to say no to locals who wanted to ride it, so then we sort of had to figure out, oh, well, are we going to sell day passes? That whole thing really evolved. Now we're just an add-on, like another chapter of Vimba.
Not just.
We're the 4th largest chapter in Vimba, I think. No? Is that what it was?
You were the most added.
We were the most added, so it's yeah. I'm really proud of our team, I gotta say, and proud of my dad for buying all that land back when we could afford it. It would be hard to put together 2,600 acres these days, but no, it's interesting, and then it just sort of evolved into now I'm just happy to see people out there, and I don't know. I find myself thinking about all these questions that you're asking, but races. I'm not interested. They trash our trails. Every time we hold a major event, it's when it rains for 3 inches for the 3 days leading up. We had a guy at a big event that we held a couple of years ago, and we weren't going to say no, because we want to live up to the commitments. And one of the guys had told me that if he had won a money prize, he was going to give it straight back to us to help fix our trails. So when it comes to racing, that's hard. I think it's different at places that maybe have sort of more of a budget, or the downhill mountain biking side. One thing I think that's really important to touch on is the group that isn't here right now is Stowe Mountain Resort. And and I mean this in a positive way. Dave Merriam has a phenomenal plan from Gravity Logic to put in downhill mountain biking at Stowe Mountain Resort. So any opportunity that we all have to support him and to speak up to the people around here and let them know about it. Bobby Murphy is a fantastic guy, GM up at Stowe, and an avid mountain biker. So let's try to give as much support as we can, those who are local as a community, to try to get Stowe going on the downhill side. And thanks Collective Arts for the beer tonight.
Public service announcements, we did ask Stowe about that, and they said it's too early to comment. But I think that, I'm sorry, Vail Resorts. So Brooke, tell us, what does it take to actually build a trail, both in terms of resources, dollars, machinery? How do these things happen now, and how did they used to happen?
Sure. Thanks.
So, first step is kind of figuring out what you're looking for in a trail. And sometimes we help clients kind of work down the path of who you're trying to attract and what type of features they'd be looking for. I think as Lilia said, variety is really important, and designing a trail network that has variety for a group of riders, a broad range, is important. And once you figure out kind of what your terrain looks like, and what your mix of demographics you're hoping to bring in looks like for each area, Mariah and I walk around and figure out what fits where, and go back on the computer and kind of GPS and figure out how things all fit together. We see networks best designed comprehensively from the beginning, so you kind of have a sense of what the full build out looks like. And once you have a design, we flag a route through the field and prepare for construction. And construction can be with hand tools, the way it used to be. The way most trail builders started out is building just with hand tools, kind of benching in or raking or whatever you need to do for the terrain to get the character of trail you're going for. And then the more modern technique is generally building with a mini excavator, where mini excavator is kind of a broad term. They range in size dramatically. From the trails Gravity Logic builds at Killington, you're running 6 to 8 foot wide excavators. And the stuff we do, you're generally in the 3 to 5 foot range. And so kind of you can manipulate the landscape really well and carefully with mini excavator. So you're picking up the top layer of duff and you're moving it to the side, and you're moving the rocks, and you're shaping the dirt to create the features you want. So you're kind of, I don't love to use the cliche term sculpting the dirt, but in general, it's kind of what it becomes, is sort of picking up the landscape and rearranging to get the features that you want. And part of the design is kind of envisioning what the trail is going to be. If you're looking for a challenging trail, you aim for the rocky areas. It's hard to make a sandy area into a technical trail. So, we like to envision what the design is intended to be and who's going to be riding it, and kind of build with an intended user. And then the coolest thing that we've seen success with is building a variety of features into a trail. So you kind of have, the faster you go, the more air you get, is sort of our general philosophy. And you build things that are gradual until you're going fast, and you gap over them, and you have little things on the side. And so making one trail that, from 7 to 70 and everywhere in between, you're having a good time. That's where we've really enjoyed finding our niche. And we can do that at Stowe too, if they're interested.
Maybe you should build some ski trails too. And can you give us a sense of what does it cost to build a mile of trail?
For what I just described, the process I just described with the mini excavator, it's in the range of $30,000 per mile, give or take, depending on the terrain. And that's our rate. And some are higher, some are lower. Hand building, if you want it done professionally, it's almost that much, because it's just as much work. But yeah, rake and ride, you can get away with less.
Lisa, can I add something on the business side? One thing I've noticed is that excavators are a lot cheaper than piston bullies, and not having to make snow is such a massive, massive relief. So the fact that the mountain bike season is actually longer than the ski season, but there's a whole difference. The stress level for me when I go into the winter, because I oversee our snowmaking as well, and there's this stress that descends on me from the beginning of the ski season and doesn't end until we close. And it's much cooler just to wait for water to run off your trails, which of course are outsloped and have lots of grade reversals and don't hold water anyway. But that's a real relief of mountain biking versus skiing.
Well, given where the climate's going and how hot it's been, certainly the last month, that's important. So we've heard from Killington, we've heard from Burke, we've heard from Kingdom Trails, Bolton, Smugs. The people we haven't heard from, I think, are working on one of the most fascinating projects in the state. And that's Tom Stussy, who's in charge of the Vermont Mountain Biking Association, which connects all the chapters. And Zach, you and your partner Angus at Rasta are working with Tom and with the Forest Service and a number of other partners on envisioning a statewide trail, or at least a trail that might connect Killington to the Green Mountain Trails in Pittsfield, to the Rochester Trails, to the Mad River Valley Trails, to Waterbury, to Stowe. So can you tell us a little bit about that vision? And maybe, Zach, you want to start, and then Tom?
The Vermont stuff, I'm here. Angus could not be here tonight. He had a funeral, so he's the one that's well-versed in the Vermont, so I'm going to defer the Vermont to Tom.
Well, thank you for all the chainsawing that you do for both the winter and the summer. So thank you.
I was fully anticipating you fielding this question, by the way. So, yeah, as it was suggested, the Vermont Trail is the goal is to connect Killington to Stowe and then places beyond. Phase one has been a process of securing basically corridor agreements with state and private landowners. And that's been an ongoing process. We very successfully, as an organization and through RASTA, have been advocating for a different kind of partnership with Forest Parks and Recreation that has turned out to be really great. They've really stepped up to the plate and have shown a willingness to plan by activity, not necessarily just by parcel, which is a huge change for them. And so the most recent success is we have found a way through Cotton Brook. Did I just announce that? I guess I'm quoted because it's live. But it's looking very promising to get through there. And there, as you can imagine, going up 100, it's a pretty challenging section to get through. And there are a lot of private landowners in there. And so there's a lot of work to be done from a regulatory perspective in that arena as well. So lots of work to be done, but a lot of progress has been made. And the state has been a great partner so far.
So I'm going to follow.
Enforcers.
Right.
Yeah.
So we're obviously seeing a lot of growth. Everybody's, building new trails. Everybody's, finding out that yes, people will pay to build new trails, and hopefully you're all buying your VIMBA membership and you're paying your trail fees and trail dues. How are we seeing the growth overall of mountain biking in the state? And Tom, I know you and I have had some conversations. And we've done some stories in Vermont Ski and Ride, Vermont Sports about this, but could you sort of sum up the growth as you've seen it? What is it? Who is it? Where is it coming from? Are these skiers coming back? What's happening?
I don't even know where to start, honestly, to answer that question. I'll try not to bore you, but I have some numbers to share. So since 2014, we've seen a few metrics really take off. And in 14, if you recall, all the chapters came together in the new chapter model. So it sort of feels like old news to us is just now entering its 5th year or about to finish its 5th year. So in 14, there was about 1,200 members statewide. And this year we're going to crest 5,000 members. So the membership itself has gone super well. A part of that, 45 per family membership has gone up 45% in the last 3 years alone. If you remember, the add-on model started in 15, and in that year we had 70 total add-ons, and that's an opportunity for someone to add an additional chapter to their base chapter at the time of registering. In that year we had 70 total add-ons, and this year we have 1,225 so far. So it's really taken off a lot. But I think the most important number, and the number of chapters has doubled since 13 as well. So the administrative infrastructure that VIMBA has put out there is working really well. But the most profound and important number that we can talk about as a trails community is the number of volunteer hours that are put forth every year. So VIMBA chapters log about 35,000 hours of volunteer time a year. So if 20% of that is skilled labor and the balance is minimum wage, that's over $1 million a year in volunteer labor. That's really meaningful. And so it really is important to become a member, regardless of what that membership number does become. They need support. It does cost money, whether it's rake and ride or it's hand built or the chapters doing it themselves. The most important part of any kind of trail build is master planning and design work and engineering, and that's done by qualified professionals. And none of that is of course free, but there's tools and bridge making and landowner appreciation days and lots of replacements and repairs to be done on trails. So it's an ongoing, not battle, it's an ongoing opportunity to make Vermont one of the most special places to ride. And I'll just continue on while I have the microphone. So I often think that, or I hear a lot that VIMBA is, in many respects, viewed as normal to Vermonters and people that ride here. But as the director of VIMBA, I get the most frequent call I get from out-of-state organizations is, and this is how it goes. Hey, this is Tom. Yeah, I'm so-and-so from X whatever organization. How in the hell did you all do that? That is the most frequent call I get from out-of-state organizations, and it's no credit to me. It's a credit to the chapters. It was a cool idea, and I basically got out of the way, and the chapters have made it really something special since. But we really have, what we have here is uniquely innovative and different than any other trail-based, certainly in the mountain biking world in the country. It really is authentically different, and it's something that by we, I mean us all, not me, I mean everybody in the room, something that we all have, should take a lot of pride in and be really stoked about.
I could just speak a little bit about, and I might be wrong, Jess, but as far as whether it's skiers visiting in the summertime, like, I don't think that it's not, the skiers are not the same visitors as the summer visitors. And I will say too that we get that phone call a lot about just what's going on here, and that when we attend, say, you know, summits or mountain bike meetings in other parts of the country, so often we are so far ahead of a lot of other states out there. So that's really exciting. And that almost 40% of our visitors, because we're far north, are Canadian. And then the second largest group is Massachusetts membership base. So where they're coming from, 83% out of state.
Fantastic. Could you also speak a little bit to the economic impact? So first of all, Kingdom Trails, if anybody hasn't ridden there, is considered one of the top mountain biking meccas probably in the world at this point. Certainly in the States. But, you guys have done a phenomenal job. Yeah, 100 miles of trails, something for everybody. And you know, I know on your sheet you've got some numbers about just what the economic impact of mountain biking has been.
Well, I do want to say too that Kingdom Trails, you know, we over 100 miles and all that. That's including the mountain. That's including all the other networks, and we wouldn't really be what we are without all of the other Burke Mountain Bike Park and all of the other networks, as I was saying. So the diversity. What was the second question? Oh, the economic impact. Well, I think Vermont Trails and Greenway Council last year, or maybe it was 2 years ago, did a survey to kind of get a grasp on how much each visitor is spending, how long they're staying, all of that. And so, to make a long story short, based on the number of visits that we see, since we can keep track, the amount of money that they're spending per day, the amount of days they're staying, which is almost 3 days, then about $8 million in direct spending just in our community, just from out of state. So that's just for us.
That's amazing. And I can speak to that too, yeah. I mean, the impact that it's had, you know, one of the game changers that we experienced in the last 2 years, almost 3 years now, was the opening of the hotel. And just the dramatic impact of that alone in the summertime, it was kind of like rolling the dice. We didn't know what to expect. But the ridership and just the natural flow of people that are coming to our area to ride is amazing, really, and impactful. Just this past month in July, we've seen at the resort the highest revenue number that we've seen since the hotel has opened. And that's been in summer versus the winter. So our summer business at Burke is important, and we recognize that.
I can just, you know, the thing that I can speak about though is Randolph, and so Randolph kind of has a historic past with mountain biking. Back in the mid-90s, there was a New England Mountain Bike Festival there, like 94, 95, 96, and it was on the map kind of before like KTA had formed, and kind of Randolph has a little bit of a connection through Jeff Hale. And so it's kind of interesting. So the little backstory there is the two organizers of the Mountain Bike Fest, Paul Ray and Perry Armstrong. Paul Ray wrote his college thesis on mountain biking economic impact. And so he and Jeff were high school friends, and he handed the thesis off to Jeff Hale. Jeff Hale went to East Burke and helped launch KTA. So Randolph has this kind of historic past. It was written up back in the 90s as the Moab of the East. Kind of crazy to think about now because it's gone quiet since then. And so we have a bunch of single track around town right now that's kind of preserved from the 90s. I've been cutting trail, I grew up there, and I've been carting trail since I was 16 years old there. And so there's a bunch of this kind of beautiful old school single track that's still there. And so what we're trying to do as a club right now is we're trying to bring back the bikes to Randolph, and we're taking little snippets of KTA, of what Bolton's doing, of what Killington's doing, you know, all these resorts and what makes a successful network, you know. We're trying to hit on the easy stuff for the kids. Right now we're building out, I've got a small mini X right now that I was on today. We're building out a small flow trail for the kids at the rec field, you know, small jump trail, flow trail. And then we're going to bring it up to the townland. So the town is completely on board, the community's on board, the businesses are on board as well. And to the point about the hotel, like Randolph needs this hotel. We don't, like, there's a lack of a hotel in the central Vermont area. And a couple of investors here in town are poised to open up a hotel at Exit 4. And so that's in the works right now. They're trying to work through the permitting, which is a complete nightmare. But we can connect the hotel to town, we can connect that to the college up the hill, and we can start to broaden this trail network. We also have the ability to connect to like the Ranger Mountain Forest that we have backcountry skiing in. There's some challenges there with bicycles, but at least like long term the trail will connect to that forest, and then we can also connect up and over to the village of Rochester, and there's trails on the other side of the ridgeline as well right now. So we're trying to take this longer trail approach, not just the small spaghetti bowls. Kind of on my own map, I have the grand plan with a ton of landowners that have come on board. And we're gonna come out of the gate next spring with about 25 miles of single track on our first Randolph area trail map. Not all of it is going to be machine built at $30,000 a mile, but there's going to be some really, really nice trail, and everyone in town is very excited about the economic impact of it, the community vitality as well. We're close to Exit 4. We're 4 miles from Exit 4, so everybody that comes up to Stowe and, you know, coming up from Killington and stuff on Route 100, we're very close to all that, so it's going to be pretty easy for us to capture the people that are close by. You know, I think you guys have wildly successfully have folks drive hours to get to East Burke, and that's amazing. And so if we can take a small piece of that and implement that in Randolph, it'll be a huge success for a small town. So yeah, we're doing it. So
I think the average distance traveled was, according to the last survey, the average distance traveled was 250 miles. So that means a multi-day stay.
Yeah.
So that's good news for the businesses. And while you touch on the community impact, I mean, the economic impact obviously affects the community impact as well, but the aspect, the healthy lifestyle aspect of our actual community and the children that are getting out there and the schools that are getting involved, I mean, it's just changed our whole community. I grew up in the area, and without Kingdom Trails there, first of all, I wouldn't be able to have a job. I really liked it. I wouldn't be there, just socially and economically.
That's fantastic. Well, just one last question, and you guys can answer it, or you can say something that you maybe didn't get a chance to say before, but going back to the first question, can mountain biking be as big as skiing for Vermont? It's out there.
I would very humbly put forth that if big is defined as how it characterizes the state of Vermont, I think we already are.
I mean, I think the opportunity is there. There is more bikers in this country than there are skiers, just as the basic fundamentals. Most of us grow up on some sort of bicycle, some sort of our life. It's really about just transitioning that thought process into spending it in the mountains. We got to change this mindset of Red Bull Rampage being downhill mountain biking. It is not. It used to be. Now that more of these mountains are getting on board, I mean, Suicide 6 is a perfect example. They're really going towards that family atmosphere. Killington Mountain Bike Club partnered with Killington the last couple of years. We do a bike bum race every Wednesday. It is a pure local race for the most part. It is a pay to play. We generate all that revenue for the Killington Mountain Bike Club, which we build our cross-country trails in our town, which Brooke actually built the first network that we have, 4 miles. And it's really changed the town's whole perception of mountain biking. It's accessible, it's fun. The bike bum racing on Wednesday bring 115 to 120 participants each Wednesday from 6 years old to 75 years old. So it's a way to incorporate more business to the local bars in town. If you go there afterwards, and we do prizes and people have fun, they drink beers, they eat food. It's a community building relationship, and I think that's where Vermont is right now. We're creating that community. And then, Kingdom's far surpassed that, of course, but us younger, or at least newer to this new game of mountain biking, you got to start there, and then, word of mouth goes really far, marketing goes really far. I think as you tie everything together, it all works together, and I think that's the biggest part that we've learned at Killington is you got to get your people on board. If your town's not into it, if your staff's not into it, if families in town aren't into it, it's just not going to work. So you got to make it, got to sell it to them, and beginner trails and fun trails are the way to do that.
Just one more thing. I think the youth, and you spoke about that just a little bit. We do have a new mountain bike team at Randolph High School, and we do group rides each week, and these kids come out, they're 12, 13, 14 years old, and there's some kids that are absolutely ripping, and it's great to see. And so we're just trying to really pass the torch. When I was 15, mountain bikes were, a few of us at the same age, the RockShox Jude, he just came out. It was the biggest thing, there's soon to be one in here somewhere. But I think what the kids have at their disposal right now, between the bikes, the trails, the community, the support, is light years beyond where we were at that age. And we're all doing it now, fast forward 25 years. And so I feel really strong that the youth at this age and this time are going to really successfully usher in the next phase of mountain biking and carry it through the long haul. So keep the youth riding.
Yeah. Just to kind of tag on what Zach said, we have a mountain bike team that just formed at the high school in Woodstock that's grown quite quickly in like 2 months. Looking forward to their season in the fall. We have a local mountain bike club, the Woodstock Area Mountain Bike Association, that has more than tripled in growth in its 3 years of existence. And so we now have 3 trail networks in the Woodstock area. And then a lot of support from the resort, putting a lot of money into growing both our downhill mountain biking at Suicide 6 as well as our cross-country mountain biking on Mount Peg. So I think as far as, can mountain biking surpass skiing? I think that there's, I guess I would echo what Tom says. I think in terms of the identity of Vermont, we're right there with skiing. So it's an exciting time to be a part of.
I'm going to keep going on the youth thing, because that's how I got into mountain biking as a 12-year-old, and then started a club when I was in high school. My brother is now organizing the Vermont Youth Cycling League, and they're putting on high school races. So the growth is happening. It's definitely saturating the high school level and beyond. And I think the key to that is the bikes and also the trails that they can ride and get the introductory on, and see that there's places to go from there. I think the diversity of trail networks that everyone's mentioned is the key for getting families into it. So yeah, I think we're totally on track.
I think it's just worth mentioning too that the cost of entry is a little prohibitive, and so when we talk about the ski industry versus where mountain biking is going, I think that the work that Tom and Zach are doing in making it available and accessible to lots of people is also a key component and worth discussing, because at $30,000 per mile a trail, which we have discussed at length all summer at Bolton, it's it's prohibitive for sure. And so we need to keep an eye towards affordability as we move forward. And I think that that's key, especially when you're talking about local high schools and middle schools even, and getting kids out there. It's important to make that the equipment and the terrain available and affordable for everyone as well, because that market is also variable, to say the least, these days. So that's where we're at doable, is keeping it available too. I mean, our after-school ski programs are hugely successful. It's where a ton of our numbers are coming from. And so we also realize that that's important to keep the numbers up everywhere as well.
Lil and Edna, we're also going to take questions, so please raise your hand and we'll get to you.
Lots of comments on that, but I will just say, as far as being accessible, we did just start a program, after-school program with a local school that's going to be available for free, the bikes, the guiding, everything, the transportation for all Northeast Kingdom schools, through a grant program with Specialized, And so when it comes to making, cost prohibitive, I run a team that was at Killington. 15 of the 100 kids were our kids.
Yeah, they killed it too.
They did too. Because they have the training grounds, and because, to them, they are starting doing this at this age, which to us is crazy, because when we were that age, we aren't doing it until now, so it all feeds back together.
Well, thank all of you guys. Those are really, really great comments. And we'd like to open it up. We've got some, I think pretty interesting people here. I know, Rick, you were one of the founders of the Stowe Mountain Bike Club. You have any questions or anything you'd like to add here?
I think if I was going to add anything, I think we're missing an opportunity, or all the organizations should be looking at lessons. 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, if you'd have said, Rick, you should teach mountain biking, I would have said it's just riding the bike. But I was involved with smugglers getting that started, and we had teenagers taking kids out. So I brought in John Atkinson, who's a certified instructor from the Sugarbush area. And after going through John's program, I was like, wow, there's a lot to this. I got certified, I've gone through different levels. Last year, we had over 300 people run through our program up at Traps, just basic instruction. And it made a huge difference. We don't realize it because we've been out riding for so much. We just think, just go out and ride. But for somebody new, that barrier to entry is actually pretty big. So I would recommend and encourage all of you to look into the ICP and the certification and doing that, because it's a revenue source, and it certainly helps drop that barrier to entry. So I think that's worth considering.
Can I comment on the lesson part real quick?
At Killington, we do run lessons as well. I've been doing it for 4 years. We originally got certified by IMBA from Sean's March. He has now taken that program. IMBA bought it from him. And now they do it all over the country. So let's take 5 years ago when we put this into play. Did about 75 lessons. This year we'll be pushing 1,000. So the lesson program is huge. You do make money off it. We charge $130 a person. We have about 10 instructors on staff now, so that grew too. We had literally one. It was myself and John Lamb at the time, so really 2, I guess. And then now we're pushing, like I said, 10 to 15 instructors. So it is something that we are continuing evolving in. We've actually gotten to the point we don't have enough lesson options to really just learn to ride only. Now, because of the Vermont trails and the different technical riding we have people that are demanding those skill sets that we are now getting trained again this summer on to do. So next year we'll be able to offer advanced lessons, jump lessons, downhill technical lessons, stuff like that. So yes, to Rick's point, the lesson program is a huge, huge asset. Whether it's PIMBA, IMBA, whatever certification process you want to go through, it's all pretty much the same in terms of just teaching the fundamentals to the rider. And just one more second, John Lamb used to work with us. He's been riding for 35 years, basically a professional mountain biker to some degree. Me, at the time, taking that lesson, I was riding for 2 years. We took the same exact lesson, we got the same exact out of it. This is something that we're talking about, basic fundamental mountain biking, and somebody who's been riding for 30 years got the same information, if not more, out of it than I did. So it just shows you that the more you know, the more you can learn. It's so true. And it really does a huge benefit for everybody's riding. it's about being safe and having fun, and that's the name of the game.
Can I just actually quick tag on that? So right out of the gate, I mean, we definitely recognized that suicide, that we needed to do lessons. So we have 2 certified instructors. We have another 3 to 4 staff members that are capable of teaching. And within 3 weeks of opening, I mean, we're doing lessons every day that we're open. And it's almost all kids, which I think is really important. A lot of families recognizing that that's a really key piece for to make it accessible for their kids. And so one of the things that Brooke did for us that was great is just we have a small teaching area at the bottom. We've got some big berm corners, a jump, and it's a great opportunity for our instructors to teach without having to actually take people right up on the hill right away. So right out of the gate, that's been very important for us.
So we've been doing lessons for 11 years, so it's been going on for a long time at Sugarbush. But what we've really found has been probably almost more popular as being summer camp options for us. And we're getting 30 kids for a week of doing downhill mountain biking and learning how the trails are built, and how they're maintained, and how to ride properly, and the safety, and how it can be fun. So for us, that's been a great piece for us, and it's growing that market. I think the other piece that we didn't really talk about is in the state, there really has been a change in acceptance as mountain biking as an actual business, and also as something regulatory, it's a made up word. It's something, it's not this, something that's done in the woods. It's something that actually there's some skill and some design and thought put into it, and it's more accepted now. And so it really is, it's bell curved on the ability to sort of get some permitting through, and acceptance from the Forest Service and other regulatory agencies. Suddenly it's no longer you want to do what, it's the, oh no, we totally get that, and you guys have established a baseline that is acceptable and good, and it really has allowed us to really expand what we want to do. I think everyone has seen that, and hopefully it grows the state business even more.
So I'm Peggy, I live in Portland, and I help run our women's mountain bike clinic in the spring down there. And I think a lot of us women learned mountain biking from our ex-boyfriends or soon-to-be ex-boyfriends.
Because they can't keep up.
My first mountain bike ride was the Mosquito Pass Challenge in Colorado. My saddle broke. So we've seen a huge, do I need to turn it off? This is beyond my, so in Relevant, we've seen a huge group in women who want to learn to mountain bike, and I'm just curious at the resorts, like a lot of the programs I see are geared toward divas, like come diva mountain bike weekend, and a lot of the women who we're teaching to mountain bike in Relevant are just moms who want to keep up with their kids, and they don't want to be divas. So I'm wondering if you see any interest from women, or maybe they're just scared and turned off, but it seems like women, there's an untapped market there for women who just want to ride and don't really want the shit scared out of them, but just want to have fun. So it seems like that's an untapped market.
Why don't we have some women answer that?
I can speak to that. So my name is Rosie, and I work for the Fellowship of the Wheel in Chittenden County. Just started that job, I don't know, April. Came from the world of social work, so it's kind of interesting because these are all issues that I dealt with in my past life, and now it's coming together with mountain biking, which was this thing I used to have to hide at work and wear pants. So I think we have like a huge interest from women. We do this Tuesday night women's ride series, which some of you I've seen there before, and it's like a really diverse group, and we're really trying to kind of put out the message that anyone is welcome, and even if your bike is kind of old and might have tires that look kind of like hybrid tires, you're welcome as long as you're interested in riding on single track that's wandering through trees, and you don't have to identify as a diva. So it's huge. There's a lot of interest there. And then to kind of speak to the younger groups too, like a lot of people are talking about barriers to entry. When it would be great if Sabra was here from Little Bella's to speak to this, but I met with her for the first time like about a month ago because I'm going out in the community and trying to get connected with people and listen to everyone's stories about mountain biking. So I met with Sabra about a month ago, and I had this watershed moment because she was talking about how Little Bella's has a wait list of 140 girls in Chittenden County because there aren't enough trails that are suitable for the programming. And so I'm like, oh, all right, here we are with the fellowship, Chittenden County, and we're kind of looking at our mission statement and kind of trying to bring things up to speed. So for me, that's like now stuck in the back of my mind that, you know, trail accessibility and diversity is really important, and also barriers to entry, because with Little Bellas, it's a mentor-based program, so the barriers to entry are lower, you know, it's very affordable, and I've also worked for Dirt Divas in the past, which unfortunately isn't happening this summer, but that was a program where girls could come and not have any money, and there was a bike and transportation, and you know, they basically had to walk to their local school, and so having more of that is something that's in my mind all the time. So,
And for those of you who don't know, that's Leah Davison's sister, Sabre Davison. They've developed Little Bellas, which helps young women get into mountain biking. Other questions?
Since we're here at the Ski and Snowboard Museum, I was wondering if you guys could speak to winter fat biking and how you see that intersecting with ski areas. Any resorts thinking about that, or opportunities outside of resorts and some of the other networks for that?
I can start off on that. So we offer fat biking at our cross-country ski center. We have a fleet of a little over 20 fat bikes, ranging from kids fat bikes up to adult. That's been very successful for us. For the most part, I would say people go out and just ride on the groomed ski trails, but we have also worked on packing out our single-track mountain bike trails, providing access to those. Mostly people would ride up on the ski trail and then down on the mountain bike trail. It seems to be definitely a little bit more fun that way. The other thing we added in this year out at Suicide was we did a fat bike slalom event, which was, I think for the first year, really well received. It was President's Week, so it was Abe Birmham's Fat Bike Slalom. I did not come up with the name. We pushed corners with our snowcat and then shaped them out with hand tools. So we had probably close to a dozen berms coming down the hill. It was a really cool fat bike event, and I think we will certainly continue to expand on that offering. But I think it's a really important part of sort of the year-round biking that the resort that I feel very fortunate about is bought into.
Do you guys separate the bikes on the cross-country network? Is there any separation of that track? Or?
No, we don't. It's a multi-use trail, and it's. I realize, that's a whole other issue if we want to and Sam could probably address that as well at Traps, but we have not had any problems with that. It's been really well received. I think maybe initially there was a little bit of a hesitation from our core skiing population, but the challenges and the problems people perceive are just not there.
That's great.
I would just say that we groomed 25 miles of our single track for fat biking, which we find to be, people come because it's unique and that it's all single track instead of cross-country ski trails. But the best part is that it's a complement to the alpine skiing. If the alpine skiing isn't good, then fat biking, and so it's another added activity in your area for people to continue to come and not cancel their reservation.
I was winter bike.
Yeah, I was hoping Ryan Tebow was going to be here, but could you two speak to winter bike as well?
Our winter bike event, one year we had almost 500 people. It's our fat bike festival. It's just a big fat biking party. But obviously the thing about fat biking, winter biking in general, is that the conditions can be really difficult. So we've seen anything from glare ice for this fat bike festival to actually the year that we had 500 people, it was powder. Everybody thinks that, oh, it's powder, let's go fat biking. But it's really fun because everybody crashes all over the place. So it's still fun. And then you combine beer. So anyway, March, we have it early March or late February, a big fat biking party if you want to join us.
Other questions?
I have a question for the board and for everybody, because this is a hot button issue.
E-bikes. I would like to hear from the resort standpoint, and from KTA, how you guys view e-bikes, what's thought process going on. Our club in Randolph, we're trying to figure out a way to possibly entertain a small trail network as like a pilot trail network for e-bikes, but it's not there yet. But it's here to stay, and it's on the uptick. And so, anybody, yeah.
So at Killington, they love making money, and they will. We did decide. We're embracing e-bikes. We're not against them. I don't know if anybody's been on them. I have. They're super fun. A lot of the concerns with e-bikes I don't think are 100% accurate. We currently actually rent out 15 e-bikes. They're Scott Sparks. So they have about, 4.5 inches of travel, not a whole lot of travel for a downhill bike park. But what we do is a guided tour. So what happens is a person rents a tour for 2 hours. They go out with a guide, we go up and around some of our work roads, kind of up as far as this individual would like to go. We kind of play it by customer base, and then they come down some of our beginner flowy trails. So 2 things happen there. 1, they can't believe they can pedal up a hill like that. And 2, they come down a downhill trail like, holy smokes, I just downhill and that was a ton of fun. So kind of get a double banger out of the same idea. And we do allow an e-bike on our lift at the current moment. However, the battery has to be out. I don't know why that is. It's just a weird rule that they came up with. I think they're concerned it's going to fall off the lift and hit somebody in the head. That's obviously not going to happen. So we're all about evolving and tweaking and staying up with the game, and that I'm sure will change next year, where we'll just allow e-bikes wherever we want to go. The problem with the ski resort, as any other person here with the ski resort knows, you have a lot of different things going on in that mountain. You have summer construction going on. You have snowmaking pipes being fixed. You have, in our case, we're blowing up tunnels. I mean, we've been blowing dynamite for the past month. It's pretty amazing. We're gonna have a 100-foot tunnel for skiing. It's insane. So, you don't want to put a person into a position where they're gonna accidentally come across something like that. So then you have a whole other commitment to signage, to patrol, to all these other things. So that's what we started with the tour, so that they're at least in a somewhat of a position where they're not going to put themselves into a situation they're not comfortable with. And so far we've had really good feedback. We've had people that have never been on an e-bike before that says it's the funnest thing they've ever done. We had the older demographic getting back into mountain biking. We had 2 73-year-old Scottish people 2 days ago come up and did a two-hour tour, and they were blown away, and they were just so happy. So, there definitely is different purposes for the e-bike. I always kind of question somebody who's completely against it, because 1, they've never been on it, because if they did, they wouldn't be against it. And 2, I think it's going to be the future for a lot of people who will get into the sport because they didn't want to get into it otherwise. It'll give them an opportunity to pedal without feeling like, I call it the suffer zone, where you can't feel your stomach because it hurts so much, whatever. But that doesn't happen on an e-bike, and that's going to get a lot of people into the sport.
I know for us that we had talked to the Forest Service 2 years ago about it, and the big thing for us is an e-bike is considered a motorized vehicle. And so when we designed and built all of our trails, it was for bicycles or multi-use trails, not motorized vehicles. And that's been the big hurdle for us to try and get access on that. And I think as they become more accepted, maybe the rules will change on that. But I think a lot of Tom could probably speak to this. A lot of the mountain bike easements and things like that are for non-motorized vehicles. So that's where we're running into a problem. But I agree, they're a lot of fun and a great equalizer.
I would just jump, sorry. We brought in a small fleet of 4 e-bikes right off the bat. And I guess I would agree with what Ben said. I mean, they are, I think, a great tool for getting people access that wouldn't otherwise have access. We haven't, in a couple of weeks, we haven't seen a ton of rentals, but I mean, the people that have gone out have enjoyed them. For the most part, I think our rentals actually have been going out on some of the dirt roads around the mountain, which is another whole area that opens up a lot of riding possibilities for people. But I mean, I think we're fully behind having them at the resort.
I'm glad you brought up the subject of motorized vehicles, because I have still not been able to understand how a snowmobile is not a motorized vehicle, and yet an electronic assisted bike is a motorized vehicle. So if any intelligent person could ever explain that to me, I would love to hear it. I believe it has to do with the strength of the lobby of the internal combustion engine industry.
The way it was explained to me, and I'm not that smart, so they made it so I could understand, was the snowmobile never touches the ground. It's on the snow.
But I think I would echo the, sorry, I just had to throw that one out there, because I think we've got a lot of muscles, not motors folks here today. But I think everyone kind of agrees that you get on an e-bike and it changes your feeling about it. I think every one of us probably had a very negative attitude about it in the very beginning when we first heard about it, and some of us maybe are still clinging to that a little bit. But you see Peter Hawks out there riding single track. Yeah. So I've had a lot of conversations about this with people from Stowe Land Trust, some of the joint trails that operate on Trapp Family Lodge land. Talking with Evan Chismark, former president of Stowe Trails, and I think a lot of people's attitudes are changing over time. Giant Bikes dropped off a test bike with us last year, and the smiles on people who came back from it. And these were not lazy people. These are people who are used to grinding, but there's nothing wrong with occasionally having a little extra help. But just on that note as well, with Stowe Trails Partnership, one thing I wished I'd mentioned earlier, the community aspect of mountain biking, I think is really huge when we talk about skiing versus biking. The mountain biking is a lot more like the cross-country ski industry versus the alpine industry. Lower revenues and therefore less competition and more teamwork. So I think it's worth noting that when we look at the success of Trapp Family Lodge's trail network, a lot of that comes from the fact that we're not an island. We are connected into the network of the Stowe Mountain Bike Club, now the Stowe Trails Partnership, on trails which were a joint project between us and Stowe Trails. They're on our land, but they're open to everyone. And I think that's a really great aspect of the mountain bike industry, just the community partnership.
Louise? My name is Louise Linalack. I'm here representing Mountain Flyer with my boss, Adam Howard, over there. But I technically work for Backcountry Magazine still. And I'm a VIMBA board alumna. But I just wanted to talk a little bit more about this e-bike stuff and thinking about other models that we can look to, generally speaking, because while we are very advanced here, the world is a very big place. And so my husband and I had the pleasure of being able to travel internationally this spring on a mountain bike trip to Corsica on a whim, because I do those sorts of things to my husband. And there were e-bikes everywhere. And it wasn't the demographic that you see in this room. It was kids. And the reason why kids were on e-bikes is because they don't have the tanks that adults have. And so these kids that have skills that are, they're capable of riding these amazing single track trails, but they can't go for miles. And I think that that's really important. When you think about access, like what we were talking about with women getting into the sport, I just had this conversation with a woman in Waterbury who was upset about somebody talking ill of her thinking about buying an e-bike. And her argument was that she can't keep up, and it's actually a really big source of stress for her. And I think that a lot of people forget that this sport, it can really elicit pretty strong emotional responses out of people because it is a very hard thing to learn. And I remember learning this sport. I know a lot of us have. It's aggressive, and it's taught me a lot of things about myself. Some things are good, some things are bad. Some things I wish I didn't have to learn, and I think that making it a little bit easier, that barrier to entry is really important, and I think that part of that is also allowing our kids to get into the sport more easily, and if that means switching them out on an e-bike when the ride gets a little bit tough, then that's a really great way to grow that community, which is ultimately what we're trying to do. We're trying to grow this sport so that more people come here and more people stay here to appreciate it. So I think that it's all weighing that when we think about these issues.
My name's Alex, and I work for Da Vinci Bicycles and some other bike component companies. But I'd say if you're on the fence about e-bikes, go out for maybe rent some e-bikes from your local resort. Take your family or friends that maybe haven't ridden before, or they're not in as good a shape, or whatever, and you get the opportunity to go riding with them, or they get the opportunity to ride with you, and vice versa. And it's a really fun experience. I got to do that this summer, and it was, I was maybe on the fence about e-bikes. We sell e-bikes, and they're great, but at the same time, it gave me the opportunity to really see where it kind of cuts down those borders to entry for people that might be trying to get into the sport, or they want to go riding with their friends. But maybe it's a little intimidating to do so. So maybe I'm repeating what you guys have said, but I think if you're on the fence, go for a ride with your friends or family with an e-bike.
Me too, when you're ready. Hi, my name's Kenley, and I teach and coach at Killington, and I'm a Rasta member, so I've been exposed to e-bikes and things, and just looking forward at some possibilities for future legislation and separation or places for people to ride. How about we divide into non-internal combustion, or we start setting up horsepower limits? The motorized and the motor assist, they're going to be here, but the fears that people are worried about are old motorcycles and internal combustion. So that's a possibility maybe for the future. Thank you.
Great. Well, there's still some beer to be drunk, so hopefully you guys can stick around and grab a beer. But I wanted to really thank these panelists. Also, just a couple of other quick shout outs. Shannon King from Trail Hub. Please check out a Trail Hub. It's a great resource we'll tell you, when you should be riding trails, when you shouldn't, when they're muddy, when they're great. Also, Adam Howard has a new publication, Mountain Flyer, and National Mountain Bike Magazine, based here, and just as beautiful as your other magazines, Adam. So, thanks. Shameless plug for Vermont Ski and Ride and Vermont Sports. We covered a lot of mountain biking, big story in Belmont, and also in the current summer issue on downhill mountain biking. And a big special thanks to Collective Arts Brewing, which has supported this series, and we're looking for more sponsors for this series, so if anybody's interested, we do them about once a month, as Deb has said. I don't always lose my voice in the end. But thank you all for coming, and a special thanks to this is probably like the brain trust. I think, Tom, you said, wow, you guys got the A-team here. And this is the A-team. It's exciting to see that the A-team just keeps growing. So thank you all so much. If you like this, please consider sharing this. Please consider coming to future events. Everything's going to be archived on the Vermont Ski and Snowboard Museum page and Facebook page, so website. Thanks.